So hi guys, welcome to the MMA UK BJJ show. So obviously my name's Stoomboy as always. So before we get into our guest today, we now have a team of writers for the UK BJJ show, which we'll be able to get on board over the last kind of week or so. So you'll probably get, if you do get emails or messages from anybody looking to do a piece for the UK BJJ show, it's definitely coming from myself and my team. So definitely have a look out for that. So today, very special guest today, Professor Joanna from Hodja Gracie Academy. Professor Joanna, over the next bit of time, we're going to hear a bit about her journey. Professor Joanna as well, I think she's the first world champion that we've had on the show. So very excited to hear about that. We'll obviously hear about how that kind of came about, hear our kind of thoughts on obviously the world champion, as well as world champion, I believe, European champion and things like that as well. So black belt under Hodja Gracie. So Professor Joanna, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. How are you doing?
Pleasure to be here. Thank you. I'm doing very good.
Nice. So what we'll do then, we'll touch on the first thing. So obviously the kind of main talking point, the lockdown. Obviously it's kind of hurt a lot of people. I mean, over the last, 8 months in. So how's the lockdown been for you? What kind of things have you been able to do during the lockdown?
Yeah, I think I've gone through different stages throughout the lockdown, like everybody. When it first hit, I was super happy because I finally got to sleep. So the first 2 weeks, it was just recovery, sleeping, eating healthy foods, cooking, etc. So it was quite okay. And then when it hit me that it's going to last a little bit longer, I was like, okay, I need to put a plan in place. So I started brainstorming on what to do. And one of the things that I actually got into recently was yoga. And so I decided to enroll in a teacher's training course. And that was taking like 5 hours a day out of my schedule. So that kind of fulfilled that space where I wasn't able to train. People were scared to go to other households. So obviously it was done online, but it was still interactive enough for me to engage with people, to do live classes, to then record my own classes. So that was kind of like a filler for me during that time. Obviously tried to do some reading, etc. Everything basically I always wanted to do, but never had the time to do it. I thought that was the right time to start these things. So pursuing, maybe not so much pursuing new hobbies, but rather just continuing with the hobbies I never had the time for.
Definitely. Yeah. And Jiu-Jitsu, I mean, Jiu-Jitsu is a big part of your life. I mean, certainly over the last kind of so many years. So, I mean, what's the longest that you've taken out of Jiu-Jitsu, whether it be through training or anything else? So how long has it been previously?
Very good question. I had about a 2-year break. That was during my university. I just completely wasn't able to train, studying daytime, working nightclubs during the night. So there was absolutely no slot in my calendar whatsoever to do that. And so when I got back, it was extremely difficult. Not just from the technical perspective, coming back, I actually took yoga and swimming just to be able to get back to it, just to train my body, do a little bit of stand up before I went back on the mat. And even having that like 1 year of some kind of regular training wasn't enough, because I noticed that all the people that used to train with me and started training with me were 1 belt higher. And the skill set was like so much higher, and I felt so bad, it's just like my level wasn't the same anymore, obviously, and so everyone's beating me up. and so physically and mentally it was a big challenge to get back to it, but took me, I guess, few months to start feeling comfortable again. But it hit me hard to start, but having, I guess, friends around helped as well, because they were very supportive and obviously like put me into their bubble and helped me out, so that feeling of comfort was very, very important for me.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to notice that. I mean, as I say, it's been 8 months at the moment. We don't know how many more months it's going to be before we all get back. So, and I was laughing with one of my friends the other day, and we were talking about going back, and being almost like white belts again. As I said, a lot of people are going to come back and they're not going to know. But as you said, it takes a little bit of time just to readjust and get back into it. I mean, that first open mat's going to be an interesting open mat, the very first one that everybody does. So we're definitely looking forward to getting back on the mat. So I know a lot of people have been doing things like they did petitions, people have been doing kind of online, kind of Facebook, kind of support. And there's been a lot of support. I mean, you see it on I don't know if you're on the UK BJJ Underground, but there's been a lot of support through that, whether it be through the UK BJJA or other groups that have been set up over the last 8 months. So, I mean, has there been anything that you've done or anything that you've supported any group or so on over the last kind of 8 months?
Yeah, I mean, we were running online sessions at our Roger Gracie Academy, so I was doing conditioning classes pretty much every day. So that was like to help people sustain their, at least, their fitness levels. I was doing PT online sessions. I was running yoga online sessions for friends that were like kind of getting bored, not knowing what to do. I was like, hey, let's just do this. Let's get on Zoom together. Let's do a workout. I'll lead it. So that kind of encouragement for both our academy members and friends, that was actually keeping me motivated and engaged, because if I hadn't had that, if everyone suddenly said, oh, no, we don't want to work out, and then if we don't want to do it in an online format, I'd be like, well, what now? I wouldn't have any work to do. But thanks to that transition, that everything went online, I was able, to maintain some kind of level of engagement. So that was very, very important. And thank God for Zoom, right?
Definitely. And I've spoke with a few black belts. I mean, I spoke with Valmir Neto just the other day, and he was talking about if this happened 10 or 15 years ago, it would have absolutely destroyed Jiu-Jitsu. Not just Jiu-Jitsu, but whether it be the fitness industry or any other martial arts, because we didn't have social media. There wasn't Zoom calls. I think the only thing you were able to have, 15 years ago, was a MySpace account or a Bebo account or something like that. So, I mean, is that something that you feel as well? I mean, if this happened 15 years ago.
Same. I was actually talking about the same thing with a friend of mine, and we agreed, like, it would have been so much harder years ago. And also connect with your family, who are abroad, with your friends who may not be living in the same city, who are not able to see anybody. So my birthday was on Zoom back in March, but at least I got to see some of my friends online on video. If I hadn't had that, I would have been quite lonely, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And then, so obviously talking about your journey then, so where did it all begin for you then, Joanna?
Okay, so it began really, really early. As early as when I was 6 years old watching Van Damme movies. I think I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. This looks really cool. And my parents weren't necessarily too keen at the beginning to get me involved, because, well, the kids have crazy ideas most of the time, and some of them are like, oh yeah, I want to be a pilot, or I want to be an astronaut, not necessarily what you're actually going to do in life. But I was kind of stubborn because I stuck with it, and so it wasn't until I was a teenager, actually, I signed up to kickboxing class. That was, I think, one of the 2 martial arts available where I was living at the time, and I loved it. I fell in love with kickboxing. I loved stand up. I went to some competition, but I also started researching online about other martial arts, because I wanted to learn as much as possible. I wanted to see which martial art is the most effective. So I went on internet forums, like early days, people like talking about this mystical martial arts called Jujitsu that's now winning competition in MMA. And I was doing a lot of research, and there was one club quite far away from where I lived at a time, but I was commuting 2 hours, I think, if I'm not mistaken, to get some training done every now and then. And I also like fell in love in Jiu-Jitsu, and I realized I was probably the most challenging, most interesting, and most complex. And I really liked the idea of the complexity of Jiu-Jitsu, because it kind of forced you to think a lot. Not to say that other martial arts don't have that, they do, but Jiu-Jitsu in particular is kind of a sport where you have to engage your mental capacity. So you have to, it's like a game of puzzle. We always compare it to chess, because there's so many different options, so many different angles to one technique. So, and it will vary between people. So that level of complexity was really, for me, as I love a challenge, for me, it was something I wanted to get into. And so having known a little bit of jiu-jitsu from where I come from, I decided to pick like the best club in the world that I could find to go and train. So I think it was 19 when I left to train at a Hodgers Academy. And then I permanently moved to the UK about a year or year and a half after that.
Yeah, definitely. And then, as I say, we will get questions or comments throughout. So, Pedro Knox, JCVD is the GOAT of MMA movies. So, he definitely is. I mean, I said, I remember growing up and watching Van Damme movies and thinking, again, that's what I wanted to do. But yeah, Van Damme was awesome. Definitely awesome to watch.
He was a great inspiration, yeah.
Yeah, that was at the time. I mean, that was the golden era of martial arts movies. I mean, you had obviously Van Damme, you had Dolph Lundgren,
yes.
and I mean, films. I mean, I remember the first Van Damme movie I watched, Bloodsport, and I can't remember how old I was. I would have been very young, and I just remember watching it and thinking, this is fantastic. And other people would watch it and be like, oh my God, that's horrible. But yeah, I mean, it's most people as well. I mean, most people we talk to, whenever we speak to them, they say, oh, the reason I got into jiu-jitsu or martial arts is because I watched UFC 1 or and things like that. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear. Obviously, you started from Van Damme, watching Van Damme movies. So, and then we've got Katarina as well. Katarina saying chess is far less challenging. Very true, very true. So obviously you then, so you've come over to the UK. I mean, that move, I mean, anybody that moves anywhere in the world, whether it be a male or female, it's a daunting thing to come to a different country. And so how was the move for you? I mean, what kind of challenges did you come up against at that time?
I have to say that culturally it was very, very different. But what was very helpful living in London, because we have such a huge community of expats. So most people come from different countries, and having engaged in jiu-jitsu where you meet so many different nationalities and people from various backgrounds, it was very helpful because, people spoke different languages, they had different jobs, there was no stigma whatsoever about anything. So you could openly talk about anything you like, different people from different religions. So actually the Jiu-Jitsu community helped me a lot. And most of my friends come from the Jiu-Jitsu community, as a matter of fact, because these are the people you spend the most time with as well. So that was like my first engagement with people was obviously for work and training. So that helped me ease my way into the culture as well. I think that had a massive impact. And I think in time you also incorporate some of those cultural habits or the different ways people do stuff, I guess. But what I did always value from day one about UK and London specifically is the amount of freedom that's here. You can literally walk in a pajama in the street and no one will really pay attention to you. So you can do and be whoever you want to be without judgment, or at least I won't notice it because people really genuinely just don't pay attention. There are too many people here. But this is kind of, for me, it was cool because it's, you can really have any identity you want, and you're still part and parcel of that city. So that's what I absolutely love about London. Definitely. Not sure what it's like in other cities, but I'm just speaking for London.
I mean, London's a great city. I mean, I was born in London. I was born in East London. Right. And then moved up to Scotland when I was very young. So, but yeah, I always loved going back down to London and visiting. As we usually come down a few times a year. We come down to like the British, the London Open and stuff like that. So we get to see a bit of London when we do come down. It's a beautiful city, definitely a beautiful place to be. So, and as you mentioned, the Jiu-Jitsu community, I mean, that's the one thing about the Jiu-Jitsu community. I mean, when you come in, you kind of meet all these people, especially if you're new to the city or new to the area, and you come in and you can go into a Jiu-Jitsu class and yeah, I mean, there's no judgment. There's no judgment at all. Male, female, old, young, different races, different religions, and things like that. And I'd say there's definitely no judgment when you walk in. So again, is that something that you feel through jiu-jitsu as well?
Absolutely, yes. Especially on the mat, everyone is equal. I mean, there's a belt rank system. Don't get me wrong. There's some certain priorities in terms of training for higher belts, but as a general rule, everyone is equal. When you go on a mat, you just the student, right? So you have to treat everyone same amount of respect. It's yeah, across the board. So I think it's genius. And also the same goes for kids. When they come to the academy, they feel included because everyone's wearing the same uniform. Everyone needs to adhere to the same rules, you know, the same discipline applies to everybody. So there's no hierarchy as such. Everyone has to behave the same way, be respectful. So for kids, it's really great. There's no such thing as bullying going on in the academy, you know, like it's just non-existent. If you are a bully, you will regret it. So for kids to have that level of comfort while coming to the dojo is extremely important because they need to feel included and they need to feel like part of a team, part of something bigger.
Yeah, definitely. And then again, some more comments coming in. So Salm, Joanna, I love you. Katerina saying yes, we love you too. So so again, we'll get comments throughout, and as every now and again, we'll just go back and forward to the comments.
Just turning red.
So yeah, I mean, so obviously Hodja Gracie. So Hodja Gracie, you mentioned about kind of coming over and training at Hodja Gracie since you said about 19, yeah. So was
I think when I first visited, yes, correct. I think I actually moved when I was 21 or something like that. Yeah.
And was that gym? I mean, did you seek out that gym? Was that the gym that you wanted to go to when you kind of sat down and thought, well, let's look at all the gyms that are available? Yeah. That's where I want to go.
Since I wasn't really into the topic as much, I just asked my coach back home and asked him, you know, what's the best gym in the world? And he's given me 2 names. And I figured that London was the closest and the cheapest to get to. Like, okay, this is one way ticket to London, and I just moved. Yeah, and I didn't expect to stay so long. Actually, I just came for summer holidays, and I took a gap year from school. And after the gap year, I was like, now I got my blue belt. I think it's just the beginning of the journey. I can't really stop here. And then I continued. Yeah, I think for a lot of people that live in London, it's a similar story where they come here just to explore a little bit, see what the city is about, come for some opportunities, whether it's school, work, and then they just get sucked into that, you know. I mean, what London offers is amazing. That's not just in terms of like the level of jiu-jitsu, but also like theater, clubs, comedy shows, everything. So people really get kind of get addicted to it and want to stay. So that was similar with me. Like I just couldn't leave. It was too difficult.
Definitely. And Hodja Gracie, I mean, there's probably nobody better to learn jiu-jitsu from than the GOAT himself, Hodja Gracie. So I mean, how was it then, or how is it training with Hodja on a regular basis?
It was great. First gym we worked at, it was in Northwest London in Ladbroke Grove, and that was it was a real, because there were that many people at a time. It felt like a very it still does, but back then it was more like even like just a close family, like just few people training together on a daily basis. And I remember I think I first met Roger's dad, if I remember correctly, and I just remember him pulling jokes every single day, which I was in stitches, and he would just throw flip-flops at people, shout at them, saying like, oh, just throwing comments, you know, during training. And it was just the level of humor and comedy going on there was, for me, it was something that I really was seeking, like an environment where I felt not uncomfortable, but it was funny, it was entertaining. You made good friends with the people there, you know, all the coaches being so supportive, and it was just genius. And I didn't think I could have found a better place at the time. So very, very pleased.
Yeah, definitely. I love chatting with Hodja. I mean, as I said, I've kind of met Hodja a few times. I'd originally, back when I kind of first started my good friend Drew Sullivan, when I first met him, I fought him at the British. We were in the final of the British, I think it was 2016. And I remember Hodger Gracie was in his corner and Hodger was shouting instructions and so on. And I thought this was fantastic because here's me fighting. Now, I'm only 5'4", and Drew is, what, 6'8". So it was like the complete opposite. And I thought Drew having Hodger Gracie in his corner shouting instructions, I thought this was unbelievable. So
yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so
I remember first time when I came to the gym, I didn't recognize him because he's very modest, and he always he doesn't walk like Conor McGregor. He's very poised and quiet. So when you first get to meet him, and so I was asking my boyfriend at the time, is that the guy from the picture? I was like, yeah, it's him. I was like, are you sure? Because I just wouldn't. But yeah, it just wouldn't match for some reason. Like the 10-time world champion title with the persona. I was like, okay, mate, yeah, it is him.
He's such a cool guy. I mean, really, really nice guy, and he always takes the time. Whenever I see him, he always takes the time just to kind of have a quick chat and then kind of go about his business. But as you said, he's very modest. He walks around, not like you look at like Gordon Ryan. So Gordon Ryan is walking about and he's telling everybody he's the king and he's the number one guy. And so, but Hodger's the complete opposite of it. As I said, as you said, very modest. He's definitely one of the greatest of all time, the greatest person ever to step on the mats. And
and what you mentioned about him being in the Drew's corner, I felt the same at the European Championships. I remember just having him behind, knowing that he's going to shout out things was really so empowering. I feel like all the people are watching, they see he's kind of correct me and coach me. I was like, yeah, this is going to be good.
Yeah.
Bit of confidence as well. It's really good. It's great.
Definitely. And then a few other people coming in. So Aska, I was privileged to see your journey, girl. You're a definition of drive, commitment, and not taking no for an answer. So proud of you. And then Peter, Joe, you are a champ. And then Anna Marta, Joanna, you are so inspiring. Were there many women around when you started training Jiu-Jitsu?
Thank you so much. Yeah, there were about 3. The first ever club that I started, I think I was the only girl. There was one more that left shortly after me. So most of the clubs I trained at back home, I was the only girl. But when I came to London, it was about 3 of us. Yeah. 3 to 5 on the, people come and go. So it's really hard to calculate and give you a certain number, but between 3 and 5 at the moment, just to compare, when we have an open mat, we have about 30, that just for the open mat. So, in the academy, we'll probably have around 50 girls. So that's a big change.
Yeah, I mean, it's unusual. I mean, I know that a lot of gyms, especially in Scotland, I mean, there are females training throughout Scotland, but I know it's my gym that I train at, Marcus Nardini, there's maybe only 3 or 4 girls, 3 or 4 females that train at it. And it's the same a lot of gyms, not just in Scotland, but possibly throughout the UK. What do you feel? I mean, certainly for you, when you started, there was maybe only 3 or 4 females training Jiu-Jitsu. So what's been the difference from then until you mentioned now, where there's potentially 50 females training at one time?
For me personally, it's always the same journey, really, because we're being treated in the same way. We're treated equally as part of the team. There's nothing different in that respect. Just maybe picking partners with your similar weight category. That's the only difference. But for now, I think it's for some reason the academy is attracting a lot of females, and I think it's amazing because there is a certain amount of stigma still around martial arts and how violent it is and how dangerous it may be. And there will be people few and far between, but still I believe that martial arts may be dangerous for people to train. And so girls maybe not necessarily are always encouraged to go into martial arts. I personally think it's the best thing that they can do because it's the most empowering tool you can find. There's no other sport that actually gives you this much level of confidence, assertiveness, discipline, whatnot, like you name it. But so I'm privileged to see that, number of people just growing from day to day. It's very humbling to see also what the perspectives of people, how the perspectives change, because people start recognizing how important the importance of self-defense, of women empowerment. So I think that change is driving more females towards the gym. So it wasn't necessarily that it wasn't a girl's thing. It was just the stigma around it, I believe. And so now people recognize, okay, you don't have to actually be an MMA fighter to do jiu-jitsu. You don't have to be, an athlete, a pro athlete to do it. You can just go and train and learn and become fit, get stronger, learn self-defense. And that's when people start recognizing that there's a bigger influx of females going into the gym, which is amazing to see.
Yeah, definitely. And we have, in Scotland, we have, they do a lot of women's open mats, women-only open mats, which are very, very popular. I know one of the girls, Christiana, Lorna Kinnock, Arizona, Mercedes. Arizona's a black belt in Scotland, so obviously these guys put together, obviously, women's-only open mats and things like that, which have been, over time, they'll be getting more and more popular. As I said, maybe only started off, there was maybe half a dozen females, but now I think the last one they had, there was about 30 or 40 females on the mat, ranging from white belt to black belt, which was an absolutely amazing thing to see.
And also to see women supporting each other in that journey, it's very inspiring.
Yeah, definitely. And then for you then, so obviously you blue belt, so you got your blue belt. When was it you got your blue belt then?
I think 1 year in training. So it was my first anniversary, I think, of signing up to the academy that I got my blue belts. Yeah.
Yes. And then what about competitions? I mean, when did you first do your first competition?
Oh God, I think 2 months into training, I went.
So as a white belt,
I traveled to Netherlands for my first, maybe a few months training. I can't remember exactly, but the first one I was able to sign up to, I traveled to Netherlands. So that was my first win, I think.
Yeah.
First competition. It was 2004.
Right.
Yeah.
How was it going in? Because I would say that for anybody going into any kind of competition, any kind of combat sports competition, it can be absolutely terrifying. We've seen it over the years. I mean, anybody, when you go in, and you can always tell someone's first competition because they seem to be, they're standing there, they don't know what's happening, they don't know what's going on. And so you can always tell. So how was it for you, very first competition?
When I was young, I had a bit of a different attitude, and I think I was doing martial arts for the wrong reasons to begin with. I think I started to prove something to myself and to others, and obviously try to feel strong as well as as a woman in particular. But I was really determined to prove myself, and so that level of competitiveness gave me the strength to actually pursue that. And I never had like this big fear of competing, or I was particularly stressed about it. A little bit. There's always that uncomfortable feeling in the stomach just before you compete. But I was more engaged into it, like, okay, let's do this. Was really motivated, but driven by that internal need to feel some kind of a sense of accomplishment, I think. Yeah. So that was the force behind it. And it's changed. It evolved in time. So now I'm a little bit older. So now I just do it for fun and not necessarily to prove anything. So if I don't compete on a regular basis, say like every 3 months, like most young athletes do, I'm not fussed about it. I would say to anyone who wants to try it, make sure you get proper coaching in place, because this is going to be majority of your work. And it's all in here. Like, you do your work physically, you train regularly, you have your coach help you out. But then at the end of the day, it's how you feel about it. Having done the training and hard work gives you so much confidence in your mind that you've accomplished everything you were able to, that this in itself will help you, get rid of that stress element, I think. Yeah, and having the team support. for me personally is super, super important. So if I travel with a team to competition where they are in my corner shouting, that's all I need. If there's nobody in the corner, it's much, much harder. So just ensuring you have that level of support, people guiding you throughout your training, but also being with you when you're competing, that will definitely help.
Definitely. And then obviously the kind of big win or the highlight of your competition, I'm presuming, would you have said it would have been the Worlds when you won the obviously became world champion? So would that have been the highlight?
I think so. Yeah. I also had an MMA fight once, and that was also one of the most extraordinary feelings of exhilaration. I never take an ecstasy pill, but I imagine it'd be like this, just like overwhelming feeling of, like you feel I can't even put words into it. I just realized, but that elevation, that feeling of absolute, nirvana. Yeah, it's indescribable. It's not something that is easily replicated.
And then obviously you're the world champion win. Obviously I believe it was it 2017, I believe, if I've got it rightly. So 2017. So what was that like then? What was the feeling like when obviously you went into the final? So how were you nervous at that point? I know you mentioned that you now do competition for fun, but obviously being in the Worlds, obviously it's a different level completely. So I mean, what was your mindset going into the final of that?
Into the final, or in particular, you mean?
Probably the final, yeah, because obviously you'd got through the round, so coming into the final knowing that you're just one step away.
The thing is, when you're in the zone, because as athletes, we put ourselves in the zone. There's a training zone where you just have a tunnel vision of just training and achieving your goal and training. There's a similar kind of trance you get yourself into during the competition, or at least this is what I do. Not sure if everyone does that. So it's kind of like the environment around you doesn't really exist per se, and you're putting yourself in a like what I said, trance-like state, kind of meditative state, really, where you just focus on the goal, and so their journey to the goal doesn't stop until it's finished completely. So it doesn't really like change from one fight to another. First, your objective is to win the first fight. Okay, done. And you just plow through. You don't really think like, oh, what it's going to look like when I win the final. No, it's not really like that. You just continue on the journey, continue on the path. So you just maintain that focus, because if you allow yourself to get off track a little bit with that thinking, or maybe fantasizing like what's going to be like if I win, I wouldn't say it's necessarily healthy ever to have that attitude. You just have to do your work, focus on the work, focus on the objective. And so, just maintaining the same level of focus as you had at the beginning. So nothing major changes from that point onwards, I don't think, until it's done. And then.
And then what was it like? I mean, once you'd finished the final, you'd won. I mean, what was the feeling like at that point? Because world champion, to become a world champion in anything is unbelievable. So obviously for you, especially jiu-jitsu, I mean, jiu-jitsu, it's a difficult thing. As you mentioned, it's almost like chess. It's a jigsaw, trying to get all the different pieces. So for you, what was that feeling like at that point?
Exhilarating. You feel a sense of achievement for sure. For me, I think it was the most important having the teammates with me and cheering for me, because you don't do it just for yourself. You do it for your team. You work as a team, you go there as a team, and you win as a team. So for me, it is not something I achieve personally just myself, but with the help of other people. So it's mutual effort. So having that, happiness streaming from the teammates, it's especially welcoming, because you feel like you've achieved something for them as well.
Definitely. And then Katarina again. So Katarina saying MMA is a great school of modesty and humbleness.
Definitely.
It can be. I mean, as I said, a lot of gyms you do see that. So it definitely can be. I have Aska. Joe, what's your recipe for not giving up?
It's a tricky one. I think, okay, so for me, when I was really lucky early in the days because I always engaged in some kind of sport activities. And in every activity or in every discipline that I engaged with, I wanted to be obviously the best, or at least compete at a higher level. And whenever you achieve a single goal or have one success in something, it's just proving to yourself that you can achieve your goals, that you can succeed. And having that confidence and that experience is already building so much of your self-esteem that self-esteem then kind of is a booster to go forward another step. So when you engage in another activity or in a completely different sport or discipline, you're carrying on that self-esteem boost with you. And that gives you an extra, like a propelling thing to say, no, I've done it before. I know what it feels like. I can do it again. And so another step, another achievement just builds upon that experience over and over. So it's not just that you wake up suddenly and you have the motivation to do something and persevere. No, it's a long process. But the more you put yourself at risk, the more challenges you put yourself into, the more you're building up that confidence bubble. So that's why I love challenges. And whenever I see a challenge out there, even if I'm scared to death, shitting in my pants, I'm still gonna do it. Sorry, not sure cursing is allowed here. But
not a problem. Don't worry about that.
The point I'm trying to make is most people sit in their comfort zone when nothing grows, and they think that they can actually become motivated in that comfort zone, but it's not the case. You have to put yourself out there to do things you have never experienced, you have never done, to actually prove to yourself time and time again that you can fulfill the goals, that you can persevere. We always say that in Jiu-Jitsu specifically, we have that saying that if you've been into a situation with someone's choking you potentially to death and you still can get out of there, you can then, it's an allegory to life, because whatever happens in life, you can still persevere and get out of the situation. So it's empowering in that way that you become comfortable in the uncomfortable. So the feeling of being uncomfortable doesn't overwhelm you, but rather it's just a thought. Okay, fine. It happened to me before. Let's go again. So that's why Jiu-Jitsu in particular for me is so great, because you'll get beaten up a lot of the times, but you will prove to yourself that every now and then, you will get out of a position. You will persevere. So for me, the recipe for not giving up is actually pursuing things that you're scared of. Just putting yourself out there continuously.
Definitely. And then obviously takes us on to the kind of self-defense martial arts stuff you do. So anybody that obviously on YouTube there is Nick Woods Martial Arts. So Nick Woods done with yourself did a lot of kind of self-defense kind of videos, so just different scenario based situations, and obviously for you showing how you would get out of that move. So I mean, how did all that come about for you?
Yes, it's a great project. We're still collaborating on that project. It's ongoing. Obviously Nick has his own channel. I do my own stuff as well on the side, but we collaborate on the self-defense bit because we feel like there's important for people to recognize that there's a difference between a martial art and a self-defense system, or what actually can happen in the street. So one martial art won't necessarily save you. It's good to be aware of the potential danger and what other situation you can get into, because it's not going to be like in a dojo environment where you have, the coach or the referee and someone's going to stop it. It's not like that, or there's no opportunity to tap. Someone comes to rob you and you're going to tap his shoulder and let him. So you got to be, that's why I got interested in self-defense as well, because I recognized I was working in nightclubs as a bouncer, and in a lot of situations I realized, like, damn, I actually can't pull that move off on that person. This person's too big. It doesn't work. So got myself in trouble a few times, and I realized, like, I think I need to do something else, as an add-on to what I'm already doing. just to understand how street defense works. And this is when Nick also invited me to join his self-defense series, which is a series of videos. And it is based on street self-defense. So real life situations. We are filming in London. So we covering pretty much everything, scenarios in bars, restaurants, what happens in the street, what happens when you're in a dark alley by yourself, if you're cornered to the wall. So coming from the lightest scenarios of someone just asking for money to the hardest scenario, someone putting a knife to your neck. We're going, like Nick explains it in much detail, every single situation, what can be done, what shouldn't be done, what to avoid. So it's just a higher level of detail on street self-defense. It's genius.
And then I'd say some of the videos, all of the videos are great. I mean, I sat and watched again, I'd seen some videos through some different kind of social medias and so on, but then I sat and watched quite a few of the videos over the last week, and they are brilliant. I mean, it shows you I mean, any kind of scenario where you're going to find yourself in, and it's common scenarios as well. So I mean, it's going to be a situation
very common.
Yeah,
you know, just in the last couple of days, two of my friends told me about knives in London, and one of my closest friends said that his client got stabbed 2 days ago. I don't remember where it was, someone in East London, and he's saying, like, if it hadn't been for our self-defense classes, she might have not have made it. And that just gave me a perspective, like, wow, how dangerous London is. And how much knife crime there still is. So it's super important to learn those aspects.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we hear about it all the time in London. Obviously, it happens anywhere you go. But obviously, you hear about it in London, especially because it being the capital. And so, yeah, I mean, as I know that a lot of places in London, whether it be through martial arts or the police, community projects and things like that, are all doing their best to try and get rid of knife crime. And that's where something like martial arts, I mean, especially Jiu-Jitsu, I mean, anybody that comes into Jiu-Jitsu, I mean, you can go into Jiu-Jitsu and be an absolute head case, but then after a couple of classes, that goes away. You go from this crazy person down to a very, very humble person. So Jiu-Jitsu is hilarious for that.
It's so true. It's so true. Everybody with a big ego is gonna have that ego decrease to a certain level.
Definitely.
There will always be this small little person who'll crash you one day, and you'll be like, "What just happened?"
Yeah. Oh no, that's the great thing about Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, as I said, you meet all sorts of people in Jiu-Jitsu, and there's all sorts of characters and things like that. I mean, you mentioned Mauricio being obviously a character, throwing flip-flops at people and making jokes and things like that. So is it important to have that element, especially in Jiu-Jitsu?
Very important to have that element, because essentially what we do is fighting at the end of the day. So if it was just purely fighting, go into the gym, fight for a couple of hours and go back, no one would be able to last long in anything. I wouldn't. So you have to have that community build up. I think it's a social thing at the end of the day as well. A lot of people go there, to have fun, to meet friends, to work out, and just to kind of distract yourself from your day-to-day BS in a way. Because when you enter the dojo, like, everyone will say that who practices jiu-jitsu, you forget about the outside world, because you're in a spot where it's like a temple for you. So it's a place of practice, but it's just disassociating yourself from everything you've had going on during the day, and you can actually just be in your zone, train, talk, laugh, and whatnot. But get into a space where everything else doesn't kind of exist for a while. So it's very therapeutic.
And in regards to obviously anybody that especially you, because obviously you do the kind of women's self-defense, obviously you've got the website, now let me get this right, womenselfdefense.co.uk.
Yes, correct.
So in regards to that then, so how can, if anybody is looking to kind of maybe take some classes with you, well, especially after the lockdown, of course, so how can they get in contact with you in regards to that?
Definitely. So you can get in touch through the website. There's a contact form on there, so you can send me a message. And the gyms are opening next week. So
Yes.
we're very, very happy about that. Looking forward to going back on the mat and training with people.
Definitely, definitely. So obviously the women's self-defense, as I said, have a look at the website. Again, we'll put the website in the comments, so anybody that wants to have a look can certainly have a look. And then, Joanna, I mean, you're black belt, so when you eventually got your black belt, how was that for you? Because again, I've spoke to a number of black belts, and they're saying that when they got the black belt, they were over the moon. Some people expected it, some didn't expect it. So how was it for you?
I'm trying to remember. I'm sure it was, I was chuffed for sure. But I think, okay, so for me, the hardest, I need to go back a step to explain the situation. For me, probably the hardest I've ever put in terms of work in jiu-jitsu was at a brown belt level. I pretty much like put myself out there like never before. I was never trained as hard ever before. Got into probably the best shape of my life, and just committed to it 100%. I had that vision, like there was nothing else, and I knew I had to put other projects on the side, because if you focus on too many things, you want to excel in one necessarily. So I felt I gave up my dancing. I gave my other like classes I was doing at the time, and I said, no time for yoga, no time for this. I'm just clear cut focus on jiu-jitsu, full commitment. So when you get into that stage, you kind of like, the belt doesn't matter anymore. It's just like an add-on to the hard work that you're doing. So it was exhilarating for sure, and it was very very nice feeling to be recognized, I think. So yeah, it's hard to explain it, but for me, it was the goal wasn't the belt, actually. The goal was to be the best I can be. And that's always been from day one. For me, I've never dreamt of being a black belt. That wasn't actually my aim. My aim was to be the best version of myself and to excel to the best of my ability and potential. Yeah. Yeah. So, because sometimes people get annoyed, like they don't get a belt. I don't see it that way. For me, it was like more like, okay, well, it's not my time. So I just keep plowing through, keep going, not stopping, because the belt essentially is just a recognition. It's like a cherry on the pie. But it doesn't necessarily mean like you haven't put in the work or you just don't deserve it. It's just that maybe it wasn't your time. So for me, it was an amazing feeling just to be recognized for that hard work. So it was very, very emotional for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And you mentioned goals throughout. I mean, is it important for you to set yourself goals? And in regards to goals, I mean, do you set yourself kind of small goals to achieve a bigger goal, or do you go for the kind of big goals that you set?
Both. I think both are equally important. I would just say, like, for me, I don't try not to get stuck on the goals too much, because sometimes when you put a goal out for yourself when you're 20, this goal at the age of 30 may not be relevant anymore, because we evolve as humans. So what I thought was important for me 10 years back, it does have value, but it's not the same anymore. So yes, for sure, set out big goals, and then in order to achieve them, you have to kind of have some shorter time frames. So for example, if your goal is to become a world champion, you have to put yourself goals like, okay, cutting weight, getting training right, getting your diet right, getting your daytime routine right, put in place. So these are the smaller goals that will drive you towards your ultimate goal. And for sure, you have to have a plan to do that. But don't get fixated on these on these things either, I would say, because you may become the best you will ever be, but not necessarily win the championship. And it's maybe a fluke, maybe just a coincidence, maybe some kind of level of luck that someone had, that they managed to do a technique on you and you just didn't see it coming. And it's not necessarily to say that you're worse than that person. Maybe you're just not yourself on that particular day, or maybe you had an injury, or anything can happen. So not having achieved that goal doesn't necessarily translate into you not having achieve the best you could up to your abilities. So
yeah, definitely.
it's important points to remember, because a lot of the students always say, oh, like this person got the stripe, I didn't get the stripe. I say, like, don't focus on the stripe. Stripe is just a recognition, but it will come in time. You just focus on while it's a good thing, it's a nice thing to receive. Don't get focused on that. Focus on yourself, because ultimately the biggest not the obstacle, but the biggest challenge is your own self, is your own mind, not who you're fighting with. It's just within you. You have to fight against yourself in a way.
Definitely. And then Jerry buys. What's your next goal now? It's not going to be the UFC. So I'm thinking, Jerry, because obviously it's an MMA UK, so they do a lot of MMA. So obviously the BJJ show is now an extension of, or now a part of MMA UK. So for you then, what's your next goal?
I will keep competing. Keep competing for fun, like I said before. But for me, it's more transferring that knowledge onto other people. So I did explore the MMA world 10 years back. I decided not to engage in that. So thank you for the question. But for me, it's actually coaching, probably. This is what I'm going to be focused on. Coaching, teaching people, building the women's group that we've already started building. It's so rewarding for me to see other people excel, to coach my students in competition, to see them grow and develop. So building my self-defense business, and also coaching and showing people what I've learned, sharing my journey, and through the journey, like inspiring other people to do their best and to be the best they can be.
Yeah, definitely. And then Tori McCann, what's your favorite submission?
I think it's an armbar. The armbar. Yeah.
The armbar. Would you say from top position or bottom position?
From the top position, yes. I have a whole sequence that ends up in an armbar, but I won't say it.
That's right.
I won't give it away. You have to come to the gym to find out what is it.
Definitely. And then for you then, I mean, what out of everything you've done, because I'd say over the last period of time since you started Jiu-Jitsu, I mean, you've achieved some fantastic goals. So what's next for you then in regards to maybe again World Championship, European champion, or obviously I know you mentioned obviously about the training and obviously the kind of women's groups and so on. But for you personally, what's your own? Where do you see yourself, let's say, in 10 years' time?
Very difficult question. Building that business, I think, for me, it's the most fulfilling thing is to share what I've learned with other people. So at the moment, I'm working on my first Jiu-Jitsu instructional. So I want to put a video series out there to teach absolute beginners on the importance of certain moves, certain Jiu-Jitsu history, dynamics, etc. Some of the things that we don't necessarily have the time to mention in a class. I feel like there's a small gap, like what can be achieved maybe through privates and seminars, but not necessarily, for beginners to actually to experience. So that's very exciting project for me. Second project is Jujitsu Camps. I started about 2-3 years ago. Put it on a pause for different reasons. So I'm restarting that project early 2021.
Yeah.
So we'll be organizing sports camps, Jiu-Jitsu, yoga, to different locations. At the moment, I'm working on Tenerife, but that's all I will say for now. So organizing camps for people to come and gather and do some workout while being on holiday. And then the third project, yes, it's ongoing, I think, giving value to people in terms of training and fitness. So that will be my business plan.
And then what about updates? I mean, how do you update people? Would you do it through your Facebook? Would you do it through Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube?
Yeah, I have Facebook and Instagram, and I put these both on hold for my own sanity
Yeah.
for a while because I felt like it was a little bit addictive. Yeah, so yeah, definitely through Instagram and Facebook, but I'm going to focus on my website at the moment. So I think the best way to contact me or get some information will be through the website in the months to come.
Yeah.
I'm trying to build it up and put some nice content on there, video content, maybe updating my YouTube channel as well. So
Yeah.
look into that.
Definitely. And then again, Tony McCann, if you could do a private with anyone, see, this is a difficult one because obviously you train under Roger Gracie.
Well,
So
that's it. So that's the question answers itself.
so it's yeah, I
When
mean
you
if you
can train with Roger, why would you want a private with?
it's very true. I mean, as I said, anybody, a lot of people when I speak to them said, who would you love to train with? Roger Gracie. So
Yeah,
I mean you're training with the best
yeah.
that's ever done it.
That's
So
it. Yeah.
so Roger Gracie, and then Katerina, have you ever tried teaching small kids? Like small kids, I remember I used to take my daughter to classes, and I always felt sorry for the coach, especially at that age, because kids at 4 and 5, they love it. Don't get me wrong, they love it. They come in and they love they've got all this energy and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, kids that young can be very, very unpredictable. So, have you ever done it, or is that something you would ever do?
Yeah, I've been teaching kids for about a couple of years now.
Yeah,
With obviously during the COVID break, not so much, but I actually the 4 or 5 year olds were in the age group I was worried about. It was more so the 7 to 11. That was the that was the group that was most challenging because they have their own little characters. They don't
yeah,
necessarily want to listen to everything you tell them. So the 4 or 5 year olds are cuties. They're such cuties, and I love teaching the smallest group. Actually, it's
yeah,
just yeah. But the teen not the teenage group. The 7-11 are the problematic ones because they usually they're kind of like rebel style a little bit. So that's the group I think that needs to develop the biggest discipline.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the challenge for us as coaches. I think for me personally, it was that group that I found more difficult to work with.
Yeah, I mean, it's always great seeing, because obviously I remember when I used to take my daughter and you would see the kids run about. Now she would have been about seven-ish, 6 or 7 when she first started, and yeah, my daughter's a bit of a diva, a bit of a she knows how to, she's got me wrapped around her finger, so dad does anything. But yeah, when she used to go to class and they just used to, as you said, they would carry on, they would have their own character. They wouldn't really do what they were supposed to be doing. And just seeing these kids grow, because these kids are now like 12 and 13-year-olds.
Right.
And some of them are still doing jiu-jitsu, some are not. And just seeing them grow into, mature kids. They're very respectful. And it's brilliant. I mean, and again, that's the kind of power of jiu-jitsu, I believe.
Yes, we do see that transition from the teenage group to when it comes to the adult classes, and the level of respect, discipline, technique, everything. It's just astounding. I love watching that. Like it's very fulfilling as a coach as well to see that transition in people and how they become mature adults. And now you're teaching them an adults class.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is.
And then Tony McCann saying again, going back to this, the private. So anybody else other than Hodger that you would want to do a
Well,
private session with?
I did manage through the different camps that I've been to and all the travel that I've done to train with a lot of the what you call probably celebrity athletes, celebrity jiu-jitsu people. So I've rolled with them. So for me, rolling is actually just as rewarding as probably having a private, because then you learn that person's style, how they move, what techniques they like to do, and most importantly, what is it like to apply my game against their game and the other way around. So for me, having rolled with these people was already, I think, enough. I don't need the private just to see what their style is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I noticed one celebrity you did, you got a picture of you and Tom Hardy on Instagram. So, did you get a role with Tom Hardy? Was there some training done?
I don't think we did roll. No, I think it was just a class. We technique-wise, I don't remember rolling. No.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And then last thing for you, then. I mean, in regards to, we've mentioned obviously the kind of web page. We'd put the web page up there, so the www.womenselfdefense.co.uk. So again, anybody wants to get in touch with Joanna, you can certainly go through the website. Anybody that's looking to train, obviously, once we do eventually come out the lockdown, which fingers crossed it'll be sometime soon. So obviously at the Hodja Gracie Academy as well down in London. So yeah, I mean, anybody that you kind of want to thank. I mean, it's been a number of years you've been training for, so I'm pretty sure you've had a number of training partners throughout. But yeah, anybody that you want to kind of thank just for your journey so far.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to my jiu-jitsu journey, it's just my entire team and the coaches that I'm extremely thankful for being with me there. You know, like treating me as family. So to the entire Roger Gracie family, I would say a big thank you.
Definitely. And then I'm pretty sure Hodja himself, I mean, I'd say the absolute legend that Hodja is. So, so yeah, anything else that you want to let us know, anything else at all, Joanna?
I think you've covered everything. Been very thorough.
So we've got the website, obviously we've also got YouTube, the Nick Woods Martial Arts.
Yes, actually, there is one thing, sorry, just came to my mind. When the gyms open, obviously, which is hopefully very soon, we will be having more ladies classes, I would hope. And I will do my best to start organizing female-only open mats at Roger Gracie Academy in Hammersmith. So also, if you haven't never done jiu-jitsu before and you like to give it a go, we'll have introduction classes at HQ. So welcome every female. It's a very friendly environment. Come and have a go. You know, we can do an introduction. You can do a ladies class. And if you're skeptical, again, you can come and watch the open mat for females and see what it's like, how fun it is. So I really welcome everybody, to join.
Definitely. I mean, jiu-jitsu is one thing. I mean, people always say jiu-jitsu is for everyone, and it is actually for everyone. So anybody can do it, from, I'd say, young kids up to kind of old people at I mean, we've seen people in their 90s and things like that. Male, female, regardless of race, religion, anything like that. I'd say there's definitely, you mentioned it earlier on in the call, if someone comes in with an ego, that ego gets checked very quickly. And it doesn't just get checked by maybe the person they're rolling with, but maybe other training partners. It's noticed very quickly. And as I say, the ego very quickly goes away. As I said, it's amazing how jiu-jitsu does humble people when they step into the as you mentioned, the dojo, the gym, or anything like that. So but yeah, it's been an absolute honour, Professor Joanna.
Pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Obviously, have a chat with you. I said, Ellie, when Ellie said to get you on, I was like, well, you're definitely one of the people I wanted to get on. So listen, it's been an absolute honour speaking with you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for the talk.
Take care then. Bye-bye.
Bye.